same, may not be the same. Review what I told you last class, okay? So how much you made in the production, there are three costs. This is the most complicated, the current period. How much you put into the production? Material, you need to calculate it from here. Labor only go into production. This is easy because you know how many hours, how many people, how much we pay per hour, you can easily calculate it. Labor only in there. Now overhead. I talked about overhead last class, okay? We don't put every single time when we pay overhead, we put in here. We put it in another account called expense account. Wait till the end of the year, I transfer. Remember I showed you that last class? I transfer through closing entry. I put the lump sum, I put in here. I completed. So we calculate this. Now I'm going to ask you, okay, listen, because this impacts this class. So when we put overhead into production, okay? Overhead. Does overhead go into material? Hello? When I apply overhead, do you see overhead here? Yes or no? Very important, okay? Overhead doesn't go to material. Overhead only go to production. Working process here. Okay, now listen. Does overhead go into finished goods? Think. Does overhead go to finished goods? Yes or no? You cannot see it, right? You cannot see overhead going in here directly, right? Okay, but think about cost flow. When you apply overhead here, does the finished product has material, labor, and overhead? Yes or no? The finished, this complete table, do you see direct material, direct labor, and overhead? You cannot see overhead, but overhead is there. Otherwise, how can you finish the product? So this finished product has material, labor, and overhead. When they go over here, if you have leftover in finished goods, you cannot see overhead in there, you cannot see the labor in there, but each and every leftover not sold product has direct material, direct labor, and overhead. So when you apply overhead, when you put overhead in here, it goes through here. Leftover, go through here. Leftover, go to cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold also have overhead. Very, very important, okay? Because today we're going to learn how to apply overhead. We okay with that? Okay, you okay with this? When you put overhead in here, it goes through, and go out. So completed product, even you cannot see overhead. If without overhead, how can you assemble this thing together? No electricity to put things together, how can it be? You have to have an overhead. Even you use the hand tool to do it, you need to have a storage place. Storage, overhead. You pay the rent, overhead. So every single product, finished product has overhead. The only place have no overhead is the material. Everything else, overhead. Okay, so this is what we did last class. I also mentioned conversion cost and prime cost. Do you remember this? So today, what we're going to do, okay, just quick remind you, because another question. Another question, okay? I will ask you about the relations among the three costs. Remember I did the last class in your class? Okay, so I think I did this. Prime cost, conversion cost. So I said, this is a product cost. Product cost, direct material, direct labor, overhead. We can split between prime cost, conversion cost. Prime cost is the cost change the being, the state of being. So material is material. Material cannot magically become a finished product. A piece of leather is a piece of leather, cannot become a handbag. Okay? Person is the same thing. So the two we call prime cost, the product cost, prime cost. Conversion cost is convert from one state of being to the finished goods, different state of being. So a piece of leather can become a handbag because you need to have electricity, you need to have machine, you need to have tools to convert it. Also, you need to have people working on it. So conversion cost refer to direct labor and manufacturing overhead cost. Okay, so for example, okay, I'll ask you the relation in the midterm exam. So we have three costs: direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. Okay, so the two is called conversion cost, and these two is called prime cost.
You might want to slow down.
I didn't. Okay, sorry. Okay. So last class, I already showed you based on our steps, income statement, the steps. I already added conversion cost and prime cost together. If you review, you will know. You know that I already did that part. Okay, so everybody know how to do the calculation, add two numbers together. Who can do it? The point is not that. The point is I will ask you what's the relation. Okay, so suppose direct labor is 40% of the conversion cost. 50% of the prime cost. If I tell you manufacturing overhead cost is $120,000, okay? So you need to know the relation among the three costs. So can you tell me direct material, direct labor, prime cost, conversion cost, total cost? Will you be able to figure that out? You're going to have a one multiple choice question. I just tell you the question. It's up to you how to prepare yourself. Okay? So how do you figure it out? What's the variable overhead cost? Manufacturing overhead cost. Manufacturing overhead cost represent the percentage in conversion cost. What's the percentage? What's the percentage? 60%. So 60% of the X equals 120,000. What's the conversion cost? I divide it by 0.6, 0.6. This one is $200,000. Okay, so altogether is $200,000. Will you be able to figure out direct labor? 200,000 times 0.4 is $80,000. So if you look at the prime cost, 80,000 is direct labor, representing 50% of the prime cost. So how about direct material? Direct material is, hello? Direct material is 50% of this. 40,000? Is that right? I say 50% of the prime cost is direct labor. So what's 100%? 80,000 divided by 0.5, 160,000, is that right? No, 400,000? Wait. 80,000 divided by 0.5, 160,000. Which means that this is also 50%, 80,000. Okay, so 360. What's the conversion cost? 200,000. What's the total cost? Is it 360,000? Why not? Because you double counting. Okay, so 80 plus 120 is 280,000. This is the total cost. I'll ask you a question like this, huh? Okay, so I'm done with this. Now I'm going to go to chapter 5, the second part. The reason I reviewed this, because there's a cost flow issue that you need to know, okay? So please go home and review this part. Now, chapter 5, the second part, is called job costing. We apply overhead. Overhead shared with every product project, okay? The whole company generate these kind of costs has to share. So how do we charge overhead on every single job you're doing? So when we say job costing, there are 4 learning objectives today, okay? So what's job costing? Job costing means it's a customized product or service. It's not identical product or service. So you buy a box of chocolate, every box of chocolate is identical. How many of this color of candy, how many this color or whatever flavor of candy, every single box of chocolate, candy, identical. It's called process costing. You buy a bottle of water, okay? Every single unit of bottle of water, identical. The amount of quantity of a liquid, labor, machine used, identical. So overhead, we're going to charge to process costing is easy. You just add everything together and average out. How many units you produce, how many bottles of water you produce, you average out for overhead. But job costing is different, customized. Okay, so I'll give you a few examples. So recently, we hired somebody to renovate our basement. So we try to finish the basement, we can rent it out. So if your parents also want somebody to fix the basement and you want to rent it out your place, now it's different. Not everybody is the same size. Not everybody use the same material. Maybe your parents are rich, you want the best for everything. Me, average is good enough for me. Okay? So now the labor will be different hours. Depends on the size. The bigger, the more labor hours used. Material will be different. Also, overhead will be different. So when we are talking about job costing, we are talking about costing overhead, because direct material, direct labor, we can easily figure out. But overhead, it's hard. Depends on different product or different service, whatever you're doing, okay? So job costing is unique product or service. So how much overhead we're going to charge will be different, depends on what you want to make. So that's the first thing. Now, the second one is called actual costing and normal costing. So the name suggests actual costing is you know the actual cost of all your overhead you pay for the whole year. How much you pay for it, you already know. So when will you know? It's the end of the year. You wait till the end of the year, you say, I spend 500,000 on the mortgage or on the rent. I spend 300,000 on the utility. You spend how much money? You know the end of the year. So actual costing will happen only the end of the year. You know exactly how much you spend. But when the customer come in and say, can you do something for me? Can you fix my car? Can you do something? You cannot tell them that I don't know my cost. I don't know how much to charge you. Come back at the end of the year. When I know my actual cost, you can come here. You cannot do that. So what happened is you have to find a way, a working number, an estimated number to charge overhead. So that's what we call normal costing. It's not actual dollar amount, but a number you can work with. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few examples to show you how we estimate the normal costing, the estimated rate to charge. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. Then we have to look at the accounting for cost flow in job costing. So earlier, I just reviewed, when you apply overhead, you charge overhead into the product. We don't go to material, we start from work in process, finished goods, and cost of goods sold. We're going to review that for that, okay? So now, adjusting over or under overhead allocation. What is this? If I use normal costing, which is the estimated dollar amount, let's say I charge $50 an hour, okay? But at the end of the year, I realize, oh my God, I'm supposed to charge $60 an hour for overhead. But I only charge $50 an hour, guess what? You undercharged. Undercharge eat into your profit. So what are you going to do? We have to do adjustment to make it right. In accounting, we have 3 different methods. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it just yet, the method. But when you undercharge or overcharge overhead, because you are using an estimate number you don't know in the beginning of the year, until you go to the end of the year, you say, there's a huge difference. What do? I have to do adjustment. That's all you need to know for the time being, okay, until we get to that point. And why do we need to adjust? Because the actual costing and normal costing use the estimate, they're different amount. Okay, so let's start. So what's job costing? Unique product or service. For example, car repair. I bring my car to be fixed. My issue and your issue, not the same. So how much they're going to charge me, how much they're going to charge you, different. Labor, number of hours, overhead, it's different. Accounting service, it's the same thing. Big company, you have lots of transactions, you need a lot of hours. Okay, smaller company, you do the audit job, you don't need that many hours, so different number of hours, different overhead charge. Dental, medical service, you go see dentist. Cleaning, 1 hour. If you have to fix the doctor has to fix your tooth because that's a crack or something, take more time. More time, more labor, also they're going to charge you more overhead. Medical is the same thing. Somebody needs a surgery, depends on the severity of the surgery. Maybe take 2 hours, maybe take 8 hours. You use the operating room for 8 hours, they're going to charge you more. So that's what happens. Customized product. Process costing is masses of identical product. So for example, Coke, Pepsi, water. Every single item the same. So you add all the overhead together, evenly divided. Okay? Use the average cost. iPhone, IKEA furniture, every single unit, the same. Okay, so how do I figure out the job costing? How much it costs to make something? You add the direct material, direct labor. This is easy to calculate. You know how much material used. You know how many hours, how much we pay. That's easy. Now manufacturing overhead. One is called normal costing because I don't know the actual number. So throughout the year, the whole year, I use the estimated number times the actual quantity. How many hours worked. Actual costing, and wait till the end of the year. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example after I show you a couple more slides. So actual costing, you add direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. This overhead is actual cost. How much you spend, you know exactly. Okay? It's accurate in costing, but it's not timely. You have to wait till the end of the year to find out how much actual cost is for everything you pay. Normal costing is very flexible because you are using a working number. So direct material, direct cost, you know it. You use the actual cost. But indirect cost, overhead, you have to use the estimated dollar amount. Because it's estimate, not actual, at the end of the accounting, you have to adjust the difference. It's not accurate, but it's timely in use. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. We all have been to the car dealership, right? You've been to car dealership, you bring a car or your parents have a car to be fixed and so on, yes? Yeah, okay. So when you go to a car dealership, there's a plaque, you see, they specify how much they're going to charge you per hour for labor. You see that? We charge labor $120 an hour, just for argument's sake. Now probably more expensive, maybe $150 an hour. Okay, so I'm asking you, do you think they pay $120 to the labor mechanics? For sure no. Right? Alright, so what does it include in this $120? Okay, when you go to your car dealership, when I go to my car dealership to kind of get my car fixed, they have beautiful lounge, right? You sit there, you can drink as many cups of cappuccino, latte, they give you those energy bars or something, candy and stuff. As long as you want, as many as you want, you can sit there and wait for the car to be ready, okay? So who is paying for that? Nice music, everything, beautiful sofa. Who's paying for that? You, the customer. Have you ever seen a commercial say, you go to the car dealership, who's paying for all this? The customer, right? All right, so now $120. How do they charge? They charge labor, okay? So roughly, mechanics, how much do they make an hour? $40, $50? Okay, so let's just make it, for argument's sake, make it simple. $40 an hour. Okay, now, overhead. So if this is car dealership, right? The service. I cannot throw a car into a machine and say, machine, you fix it. I cannot do that. It's a labor intensive. Somebody has to check the car. Some people need to have the knowledge to fix the car. So it's a labor intensive. When I charge labor, I also charge overhead based on labor. This is called based on labor. Okay, whatever you do the base. Okay, actual quantity. Okay. So based on labor. Here. I'm going to come to this. So I'm going to charge $40. So $1 of labor, I also charge $1 of overhead. So this is 1-to-1 ratio. So earlier, when we are doing this, we're going to go here. Okay? Remember this example I show you? I say direct labor is 0.4. Direct overhead is 0.6. Basically, this is 1 time of direct labor and charge 1.5 times of overhead, the ratio, 40-60%. Okay, so charge $1 of labor, I charge $1.50 for overhead. So you can choose whatever the ratio you want to have based on the labor, based on machine. Okay? So sometimes you can say, okay, I'm going to charge 80% or 50%. But in my example, this example, I'm showing you, it's 1-to-1. I charge $40 for labor, I charge $40 for overhead. Okay, but what else can I charge? How about profit? You have to charge profit. I add profit, $40. So profit is also based on labor, $40. So if you cost it wrong, because if you estimate it wrong, you're supposed to charge $60, you only charge $40. Then you're eating into your profit. You're going to have less profit. Okay, so if you're supposed to charge you charge $40, but only cost $35, so you have more profit. So usually we want to have a buffer. We need to add a profit. So if you bring your car to be fixed, when you get an invoice, what do you see? Parts. Okay, the parts cost separately. Labor. Do they charge you overhead? Do you see overhead? No, but they have to cover their overhead. Do you see profit in there? No. So everything is embedded in the labor. You will be willing to pay for the labor because I don't know how to fix car. I'm okay to pay for it. But I don't want to pay for your overhead. I don't want to pay for your profit. But they need to survive. So when they do this, they add to labor, overhead, and profit. Okay, so now each hour charge $120. You bring your car to be fixed, and they say, it looks like going to take 3 hours. They give you a quote, 3 hours. This is a quote, this is not actual. 3 hours. So what happened is you're going to charge $120 for labor, $120 for overhead, $120 for profit, $360. Okay? This is the quote. This is not actual. But once you bring your car in, they start to open it up. They try to look at it and they say, oh my God, here's another issue. Here's another problem. You have a leak here, you have a leak there. They spend 5 hours. Actual. Five hours, not 3 hours. If you're at a car dealership, a service center, will you charge 3 hours or 5 hours? You spend 5 hours working on it. Are you going to charge 3 hours or 5 hours? Hello? 5 hours, of course. You spend 5 hours, why would you charge 3 hours? You just need to tell them, I'm sorry, I underestimate the time. I will charge you more because I spend more time. Okay, so this is why we don't use the quote. We don't use the quote. We use the actual hour. That's why I show you here. Times actual quantity. You can use the budget or use the actual, but you always have to use the actual quantity. Remember this, okay? This is easy. Pay attention, you don't pay attention. But when you go to the exam, you say, oh my God, should I use the actual or should I use the estimate? You use the actual. Because you really work 5 hours, charge 5 hours. If you quote 3 hours, but you only work 2 hours, you're going to charge 2 hours or 3 hours? 2 hours. That's the case. In accounting, you have to base on actual, not based on the quote. Okay? So how do I figure out $40 an hour? How do I figure out $40 an hour to charge? Beginning of the year, I don't know how much overhead is going to be until the end of the year. So how do I know I'm charging $40 an hour? So I'm going to estimate. I'm going to show you how I establish this rate, $40 an hour. This is only overhead. Direct material, direct labor, we know the cost. We don't worry about it. Only overhead, okay? So overhead is indirect, can be fixed, can be variable cost. Okay? So it's the important part. If you don't have this overhead, how can you finish the product? How can you provide a service? You must include it. Usually you don't know it until the end of the year, how much you really spend, okay? Need to use the estimated, like this, $40. I use $40. But maybe I charge too much, maybe I don't charge enough. It's not a problem, as long as it's around there, okay? Then you are going to do the adjustment at the end, okay? So company can calculate cost of goods sold. When the product is finished, when the service is done, right away you can figure out what's the cost. Material, labor, and overhead, okay? So we need to know that. Okay, so depends on the industry. In the labor-intensive environment, usually we use the labor as the base. Based on labor, 1 hour labor, 1 hour overhead. 2 hours labor, 2 hours overhead. Okay, based on the labor. You can also use the labor hour or labor cost. If it's an automated environment, like lots of machine, you can use the machine hours and machine cost. Based on that. Depends. Okay. So I'm going to try to link what you have learned up to this point to this lecture. Okay, so in the beginning, there are 3 stages. The first stage is beginning of the year. I need to figure out how much overhead cost is going to be. I don't know. I need to estimate. So remember we did it in chapter 2. We figure out based on the past experience. So I'm going to estimate how much it's going to be before I get to the rate. So I'm going to look at my past experience. You can use account analysis, or you can use the high-low method, whatever you want to use. So I figure out for the coming year, okay, for this coming year, I estimated the total fixed cost. Total fixed cost will be $900,000 fixed cost. And I'm going to use the cost driver, the cars, number of cars I service as a cost driver. The more cars I service, the more the variable cost. Okay, so this is what we learned in chapter 2 and chapter 3. So I applied that concept in here. So let's say I figure out every car I service will be $30 per car extra. Okay, so number of cars, X. This is the mathematical equation. Okay, now I'm going to figure out maybe this coming year we're going to service 18,000 cars. So I use car as a cost driver. Okay, 18,000 cars. So you plug it in right away, you know what's the total dollar amount going to happen. But this is not real, this is estimate. So this is $1.44 million. This is the estimate. Okay, so beginning of the year, you look at the past data, you say this is a mathematical equation, this is how I'm going to estimate. Okay, so what do? I have to figure out the rate, estimated the rate to charge $40. How do I figure out $40? So I will figure out total estimated overhead costs beginning of the year, $1.44 million. Okay? And this is the car service dealership, the fix your car service department. So I'm going to use the labor cost mechanics hours. Total estimate labor hours. Okay? Beginning of the year, how do I know how many people are going to be here? Anybody going to be absent or anything? I don't know. But use my best judgment. I'm going to say, okay, 6 days a week. People work 6 days a week. Okay. 50 weeks in Canada, we have to give 2 weeks vacation. Okay. So that's how many days a year people work. Each day they work 8 hours. So altogether, 2,400 hours a year, one person. But this car dealership is not just one person working there. Let's say we have 15 people working there. Okay. So 2,400 hours per person a year, 15 people. So altogether, the whole year, they're going to work 36,000 hours this coming year. Of course, it's not real because some people may need more money, need to pay the mortgage. So they work overtime. Okay, sometimes they have so many cars and they need people to work overtime. They pay them more. Sometimes people may get sick. They don't come to work. So we don't know if it's really 36,000 hours. We don't know. But this is an estimate. Okay, this is the beginning of the year. So you take this number, estimated cost, divided by estimated hour will equal $40 an hour. This is called estimated overhead rate. This is how I figure out $40 an hour to charge. Okay, this is not real with my best judgment. Okay, So then what do you do with this number? $40. You apply. Every time when you do a job, when you fix a car, you work 5 hours, you charge 5 hours, you charge actual. So the second step is during the year. Okay, what do? You take the estimated overhead rate, which is $40 an hour, times the actual hours worked. Okay, so how do I know actual hours worked? Well, every car coming in, you have a record. 5 hours work, 3 hours work, 10 hours work, 24 hours work, whatever, you accumulate. Every day you have so many cars coming in for the whole year, you know how many hours worked. You know exactly because you have the worksheet, how many hours. Okay, so suppose 35,000 hours worked. Why? Maybe not a lot of business. Not that many people coming in, bring the car in to be fixed. Maybe some people get sick, whatever. Okay, so you charge $40 an hour, you work 35,000 hours. This is called total overhead applied. How much will we charge to all these jobs? Okay, so we charge $1.4 million overhead. All the job, we apply $1.4 million. At this point, I don't know if I overcharge or undercharge. I don't know if $40 is too much or too little. I don't know. Why not? Because you have to wait till the end of the year to compare with the actual. Okay, so this is during the year, okay? Every job you add all these hours. Now, the end of the year. What happened? You take the total overhead applied. You apply based on the estimated, we call predetermined or budgeted rate, $1.4 million. You minus the total overhead actual. Because at the end of the year, you know exactly how much money you spend on the maintenance, on the utilities, insurance, all these rent, everything. You know how much you pay for it. You add them all together, you compare. Suppose the end of the year, you go to the accounting record and say, oh, I spent $1.33 million. We charge 1.4 to do all these service, but we only spend actual dollar amount, 1.33 million. Okay, so what happened? The number is positive. If the positive means over apply, because this one apply greater than actual. You over apply. You apply too much. The rate $40 is too much. Okay? If the number is negative, it's under. You're supposed to charge 1.33, maybe you only charge $1 million. You undercharged, not charged enough. Okay? So in this case, it's over applied. You apply too much. So at this point, you can figure out what's the actual overhead rate. You know, actual overhead rate. How do you figure out? Okay, let me show you. This is to work 35,000 hours. $40 an hour. We use $40 an hour times this. Okay? So now 1.33 million. This is total overhead cost, including amortization. We did not pay for amortization. But why do we include amortization? Amortization means that you bought a machine before, But you use the machine, even though you don't pay money now, you pay money before, you have to recover the cost. So you charge whatever you use the machine, you have to recover. Okay, so divided by 35,000 hours. This is $38 an hour. This is the actual overhead rate. This is the estimated overhead rate. So the difference is $2. We overcharge $2 per hour. So 35,000 hours, so $70,000 overcharged. Okay, so it's overcharge and the charge not good. If you overcharge, if the market can still take your product, your price will be more expensive than other company. If too much over, then you won't have business because too expensive compared to other people. If you undercharge, you're going to sell a lot, but guess what? You're going to lose money. Every unit you sell, you lose money. So we don't want overcharge or undercharge. We want to be as accurate as possible. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so now how do I do the adjustment? This $70,000 I add too much. How do I adjust it? Okay, so this one need the concept of cost flow. Earlier I was talking about this. Okay, so what do I do? 3 methods. Okay, so the first method is eventually everything end up in cost of goods sold. Okay, so I'm going to show you here. We have 3 accounts. As inventory. Okay, so we have direct material or raw material, material account, work in process, finished goods. Debit increase, credit decrease. Okay. We also have 3 types of account. Expenses. I showed you this last class. So we have manufacturing, overhead account, cost of goods sold. So last class, I make a point to tell you, manufacturing overhead account, we list everything, all the expenses for overhead. And the end, we add them all together. This is 104,000. Then we transfer this amount to working process here, overhead. Remember we did this last class? I said we add everything here, 104, then we transfer only one amount in here. The end of the accounting period, you know. Okay, so at that time, last class, I said this is called actual. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce another account. Okay, the actual account is called manufacturing overhead control account. This is the actual. How much you spend on every single amount for the overhead, production overhead, you put it in here. Okay, then we have another account called manufacturing overhead applied. Okay, so the actual is you add a rent, you use the utility, maintenance, everything, direct material, indirect material, everything else. This is the actual how much you spend. But the apply account is based on estimated overhead rate times actual quantity. This is not real, it's just estimate. So what do? We don't do it apply right away into working process. We did it last class because the end of the year. But during the whole year, what do? I apply. Okay? So based on $40, 35,000, I apply $1.4 million. material, direct labor, overhead. So what I do is when I apply, make it smaller, you can see. Based on the rate, I apply here. But how about this? You don't touch this until the end of the year. I have to do adjustment. So let's take a look at the overhead. Where does the overhead go? After we apply this amount over here. Okay? You add direct material, direct labor, $1.4 million. If you finish some of the product going to finished goods, this is called cost of goods manufactured. Okay, so inside cost of goods manufactured, I have three things. Finished product, I have three things. I have direct material, direct labor, and overhead. I go over here. We have the beginning inventory. I add cost of goods manufactured. Inside, I have direct material, direct labor, overhead. I sold some. This is cost of goods sold. So inside cost of goods sold, I also have direct material, direct labor, overhead. Once you get out of here, where does it go? It goes to cost of goods sold. Inside cost of goods sold. I have direct material, direct labor, and overhead. So now I want you to pay attention here, okay? I may have a leftover in work in process, which means that I started in production but I did not finish. So here, leftover, you have direct material, direct labor, overhead. Inside finished goods, you also have direct material, direct labor, overhead. So once you apply, okay, once you apply this amount in here, it goes through, see, overhead here. Complete product. Not completed product, you have overhead. You go over to the next stage, finished product. You also have overhead in the finished product. You did not sell everything, you also have a leftover overhead in finished goods. Remember earlier I was talking about overhead. Where does it go? Finished goods, cost of goods sold. That's overhead. Here, overhead. So if you look at, once you apply overhead, you have some overhead stay inside working process, some overhead stay in finished goods, some overhead in cost of goods sold. But how much in each account for overhead? We don't know. Too hard to figure out. Especially if you make so many products, very difficult. But one thing you know is every account except for direct material has an overhead in there. Work in process, finished goods, and cost of goods sold all have overhead in there. Okay, so it depends. Listen, it depends on what you think you want to adjust. There are three different methods I'm going to tell you, okay? So if you think this 70,000 is small, not significant, we call it immaterial, not big. Okay? So normally, what do we say big or not big? Usually is less than 10% of the actual. Please do not email me to ask me what does it mean, okay? I'm going to tell you now, listen carefully. The difference between how much you apply, use the estimate, and the actual, if the difference is less than 10% of the actual, then we say, okay, it's not material, it's not big. So what do I do if it's not big? Because the cost eventually all end up in cost of goods sold. Everything. You go through this, coming down here, everything end up in cost of goods sold. Whatever you manufacture end up in cost of goods sold. So the first way to do is put everything into cost of goods sold. Quick and easy, no trouble. Put everything into cost of goods sold. Okay? So how do I do the journal entry? How do I put it in cost of goods sold? Okay, so here, the question is this. We said at the end of the accounting period, at the end of the year, I realized we spent $1.33 million in overhead. Rent, electricity, maintenance, all these type of things, amortization, I use the machine for whatever, okay? So you figure out it's $1.33 million. But you apply based on $40, you apply $1.4 million. You apply too much. Okay, so now, in some company, they do not do, this is called contra account. They separate the two accounts. This is all the negative, this is all the positive. Okay, so this is called contra account. Some company combine the two together, the two account together. So how do you do the two together? So they just call it manufacturing overhead account, one account. So on the debit side is actual, how much we spent. On the credit side, this is applied based on estimated overhead rate. Okay, so now look, we spend all kinds of amount for overhead. This is $1.33 million spent. Based on the estimated $40 an hour, 35,000 hours, so $1.4 billion applied. Okay? So what do you see? The balance should be on the debit side or credit side. Which side is more? You net them out. The difference 70,000 on the debit side or credit side. Which side is bigger? Hello, hello, you have to know this, huh? Which side is bigger? You net them out, you subtract. Bigger side is the balance. So debit or credit? Credit. Okay, this is important. When you have a credit balance, means you over applied. If you have more on the debit side, it means you under apply because the actual cost is more, you do not apply enough. If the balance is on this side, it will be under applied. So remember that, okay? Debit balance under applied. Credit balance over applied. Okay? So what do I do? I'm going to show you two different methods for writing off everything into cost of goods sold. Okay? So it doesn't matter if the company uses one account or two accounts. Actually, if the company uses two accounts, it's easier. Because I have to cancel this account. I have to cancel this account. So what do? I have to credit. Actual is always on the debit balance. So when you credit it, you cancel it out. This one, you have to apply is always on the credit side. When you want to cancel it, you have to debit it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. Everything is going to adjust in the cost of goods sold. Okay? So number one, write off or adjust to cost of goods sold account. Okay? Add or subtract, you go to cost of goods sold. Originally, I put too much in there, so I'm going to take it out. Now, manufacturer overhead applied always on the credit side. So I want to cancel out, I debit. Manufacturer overhead control actual 1.33 million. The difference 70,000. You know they have to balance. So this is cost of goods sold. Okay, so this is straightforward. But what if the company use only one account? Debit and credit together in one account. No problem. So what I do is I'm going to cancel this one by debit. Too much credit, put it debit. I'm going to debit 70,000. Okay? So this is A. Oops. B. Just use one account. Manufacturing overhead 70,000. Cost of goods sold 70,000. So basically, I net the two together. Okay, so 70,000 overhead. Okay, but if you find 70,000, even though less than 10%, but it's quite big, you want to be more accurate, then we have to use another method called proration. So what does it mean, proration? Look, I have 3 accounts. Work in process, finished goods, cost of goods sold. All 3 accounts have a portion of overhead, but I don't know how much. So how do I prorate, split? I cannot say 70,000 equally divided by 3. I cannot do that. So what do? I will take the balance of each account, here, here, and cost of goods sold. 3 accounts, the balance, before we do any adjustment. Okay, so first, I look at what's the balance. So I'm going to do the proration. So work in process, finished goods, and cost of goods sold. 3 accounts. And let me take a look, what's the balance of each account? Suppose $20,000 balance in work in process, not completed product. Finished goods, 30,000, I completed but not sold. And cost of goods sold, 50,000. Okay, so this is 100,000. I have 3 accounts, all have a little portion of overhead in there, but I don't know how much. I just generally take the balance. So you take each account divided by the total. So this represents 20%, 30%, 50%. This is 100%. The difference is 70,000 times 70,000. Okay? So this one I'm going to adjust 14,000, 21,000, 35,000. So altogether I'm going to adjust 70,000. So 70,000 split 3 ways based on what? Based on their ending balance, not equally divided. Okay, so how do I do the adjusting entry? The same thing as how I do cost of goods sold. But instead of one account, one amount, 70,000 go to cost of goods sold, I split into 3. So I'm going to show you as well. Okay, so the first method, manufacturer overhead, applied debit, $1.4 million. Manufacturing overhead, control, credit, 1.33 million. Okay, now 3 account, I already figured out here. Okay, so working process, 14,000. Finished goods, 21,000. And cost of goods sold, 35,000. So one amount, 70,000 split into 3 ways. Are we okay? Makes to you? Now, another way of doing it is, what if the company only uses one account, one combined account, do not have a control and apply. Number 2 is manufacturer overhead, 70,000. Okay, work in process, 14,000. Finished goods, 21,000. Cost per sold, Okay, because in each hour you are short of $2, but this only be viable if you only have 4 or 5 jobs or less than 10 jobs a year. You are easily able to calculate. If every day you do 10 or 20 jobs, and the 365 days will be impossible to recalculate. But that will be most accurate. So this is called recalculation. Number 3, recalculation. The recalculation will be most accurate, but was very time consuming to do. Also, if you have lots and lots of jobs, you cannot do it. Only a few big projects you can figure it out. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to calculate this in a minute. So at this point, I want to summarize everything I do to this point. Okay, so in the very beginning, I say adjusting the overall under overhead. It's because in the beginning, we use the estimate dollar. We don't know how much it's going to be. So the end will not be the same. So if not the same, I need to make it right. Knowing the cost flow, I know eventually all the overhead going to the product, cost of goods sold. So I can use the first method going to cost of goods sold. If the amount you don't think is too big. If you think the amount is big, what do? You prorate it. Based on the account balance of each account, the 3 accounts. Working process, finished goods, cost of goods sold. You split the one amount into 3 accounts. Number 3 is recalculation. Okay, so this is, we just finished this part. Now I'm going to summarize how we did this. So the last 30 minutes, I've shown you how I get the $40 an hour. Okay, so first we take the total estimated overhead. This is not real. You have to figure out how much it's going to be. You estimate. What are you going to base? Labor or machine? It's up to you, depends on your industry. So I say, okay, I'm going to use the labor hours because labor intensive. Okay, so then now I figure out predetermined or budgeted or estimated. They are all interchangeable. So I figure out $40 an hour. Now you really work on the project, okay? So how many hours you really worked? You times this, actual, not estimate. So now at the end of the year, we say, okay, we've done so many hours, so many jobs. This is how much overhead I charged or I applied, $1.4 million. You go to accounting record, the end of the year, you compare the two. Applied with the actual. If the number is positive, you apply too much. The number is negative, you did not apply enough. What do? You do adjustment. Okay, so these 3 methods is based on the cost flow. Because when we apply overhead, we go to, not go to material, we go to work in process. Anything left over, work in process, inside has a portion of overhead. Finished goods, you may have leftover, inside have a little bit of overhead. You sold, so all these 3 accounts has overhead. Okay? That's why in the beginning, early on, when we started, I tell you, overhead, where does it go? Working process, actually in the finished goods and cost of goods sold. Okay, so pros and cons of each approach. If you write out everything to cost of goods sold, you adjust cost of goods sold, easy. Very quick to do it, simplest. Okay? Or if you don't have a lot of working process or finished goods ending balance, you can put everything into cost of goods sold. Proration is more accurate, slightly more accurate, and doesn't cost too much to do. The most accurate is recalculation, but it's very time consuming to do. If you have lots of jobs, it's not possible. Okay, so that's that for the theory. I'm going to show you another example, the question. Okay, so this question is here. I have notes and examples here, notes and examples. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. All right, so this is the service business. Let's look at the question, okay? So on January 1st, 2024, Ava Advertising Agency, AAA, they estimate the overhead cost will be $120,000. We don't know how they estimate, they just estimate $120,000. And since advertising agency is a labor-intensive business, they set a policy to allocate overhead based on labor. So you want to have a systematic way to charge overhead. You cannot say, oh, this guy look cute, let me charge this. This guy look ugly, let me charge more. No, you want to be systematic way to do it, okay? So we take 120,000 and they apply based on labor. And the estimate labor is 6,000 hours. Do you know the working number, the estimated overhead rate is? How much? Do you know how to calculate estimated overhead rate? You understand what I'm saying? How much? You think the estimated overhead cost is 120,000, you're going to work 6,000 hours, so what's the estimated overhead rate you're going to charge? $40? $20. $20. How about the rest of you? Why $20? You understand what we're trying to do? We try to find a dollar amount we can charge. Every time when you do the job, you can charge. So that's correct, $20. In the midterm exam right away, I'll ask you, what's the overhead rate? Estimated, okay? But do you know the actual overhead rate? Not yet, not the end of the year. This is just beginning, okay? Now, the end of the year comes, December 31st, 2024. What happened? Now we know actual cost is $127,600. We spend this amount of money. Do we know we over applied or under applied? We over apply or under applied? Under applied? Okay, why?
Isn't it 120,000 minus 127,600? So you underapplied by $7,600.
Okay, okay. Thank you for telling me that. 127,600. This is the actual. And you say minus what?
127,600.
No, we take 127,600 minus what?
Oh,
120.
120.
What's 120? Is this applied? 120. What is this $120? What is that?
Applied.
Is applied?
Yeah.
Does it say applied? It's estimate. It's not applied. You haven't applied yet. You underestimate. But estimate doesn't matter. What do you compare? You apply. You compare with applied. Remember we compare with applied, not estimate. We don't compare these two or these two. We don't. We just overestimate, underestimate. What do we compare? We compare applied with actual. So now we know the actual. Do you know how much we applied? Not yet, because you don't know the number of hours worked. You need number of hours worked to apply. So 127,600, okay. Number of hours worked is 5,800 hours. So if you know you work 5,800 hours, you know each hour we charge $20. Will you be able to figure out how much we applied? Make sense to you? So how much we applied? Each hour, you told me we charge $20, and we work 5,800 hours. So how much we applied? Hello? Are you awake? Okay, we do the same process. Okay? So estimated overhead cost 120,000. Okay, you have no problem with this. Going to work 6,000 hours. So you say $20 an hour. Okay, this is estimated overhead rate. This is estimate hours, okay? We apply. I ask you, we over apply, under apply. You say, we under apply. We haven't applied yet. You just compare to estimate. It's good because when you made a mistake, you remember you don't make the same mistake in the exam, right? Okay, so we take $20 an hour, 58,000, so $116,000. The end of the year, I know I spent 127,600. I apply 116,000. Okay, what happened? 16,000. 11,600. Negative. Under applied. You did not apply enough. Are we okay with this? Okay, so first we figure out we under applied because we do not charge enough. But do you know the actual rate? This divided by 5,800, this is $20 an hour. Estimated overhead rate. You divide it by 5,800 hours. Each hour is how much? 20 what? 5,800 hours. Hours worked. Okay, so this is 127,600 divided by 5,800. $22. This is the actual rate, which means that every hour you charge $2 short, not charge enough. 5,800 hours, so that's 11,600. Are we okay with this? Okay, so I'm going to figure out the job costing. How much it cost to make all these advertisements? Okay, so we haven't finished reading the question. So they tell you the labor will pay $45, but overhead will charge $20. So less than half of that, okay? So the worksheet schedule, we only have 4 jobs a year, okay? Material for each job is different. Labor hour, 1,800, 1,200, 1,500, 1,300. You add all these hours together is exactly 5,800 hours. So 5,800 hours, break it down to 4 jobs. And this is how many hours we spend on every single job. Okay, so what's job costing? Each job, material, labor, overhead. Okay, so I'm going to do the job number 1, job number 2, job number 3, and job number 4. Okay, direct material, 65,000, 32,000, and 43,000, 52,000. Okay, direct labor, remember each one at $40, $45. Overhead, each hour at $20. Are we okay with this $20? Because we calculated $20 an hour. Okay, so overhead, go with labor. So labor, 1,800 hours, 1,800 hours. 1,200 hours, 1,200 hours. 1,500 hours, 1,500 hours. 1,300 hours, 1,300 hours. Are we okay with this? So each job you do 3 components: material, labor, overhead. So I'm going to add them all together. I calculate, add them all together. For job number 1, I spent $81,000 of labor. We have to charge the customer. Okay, so now 3,600 overhead. 54,000 and 24. Oh, sorry, this 1 0 here. 24,000. 67,500. $30,000 overhead. Labor, 58,500. 26,000. So this is what we call job costing. How much it costs to do each advertisement job? So for job number 1, we spend 65,000 material, 81,000 for labor, and overhead 36,000. So job costing is 182,000. Job number 2, 110,000. Job number 3, 140,000. Job number 4, 136,500. Okay. So we calculated this is the amount overhead, 116,000. We applied based on $20 an hour. So if you add this number, this number, this number, this number together, that's what happened. So 116,000, break it down into 4 different jobs. This is how much for each job. Okay? All right, so we know that it's underapplied. Okay, so now let's take a look at this question, okay? Step number 1, we figure out estimated predetermined overhead. How much we're going to charge for overhead? Because in the beginning, we don't know. So we say, okay, $20 based on estimate. Now, this question is saying that we only ask you to do job 2002, job number 2. But for me, I show you everything, okay? So job number 2, you want to figure out what's the applied overhead. Applied based on labor at $20. Okay, so that's 110. 24,000 go to overhead. You add the 3 things together, 110,000. You want every single job is to add all of them together. Okay, continue. Overhead. Okay, this is all 4 jobs. We apply $20, but actual 22. That's why $2 short per hour. So earlier example, I did not show you how to do the recalculation. I'm going to show you the recalculation. So I use this example to show you the recalculation. So because this is an advertising business, we don't have material. So we can put everything into cost of goods sold or service and then overhead. Because if we did not charge enough, we have to charge more. Okay, if this is a manufacturing business, of course this is not manufacturing, okay? So I'm giving you an example. If this is a manufacturing business, we have 3 accounts that have an overhead in there. We have the work in process, finished goods, cost of goods sold. So this is a second method of splitting the difference, $11,600. Okay. So you look at the ending balance, suppose it's 10,000, 15,000, 25,000. So 20%, 30%, 50%. Times the difference. So each account, we are going to add back more because we did not add enough. Okay, so you do the journal entry. Recalculation. Okay, this is the example I did not show you because each hour is $2 short. We did not charge enough. But it's possible for us to recalculate because only 4 jobs a year. Okay? So what do I recalculate? Job number 1. Okay, how many hours? 1,800 hours. We charged. Each hour short of $2. I'm going to charge $3,600 more overhead into this job. But in terms of journal entry, what do? You can go to cost of goods sold. Okay, so job by job. Job number 2 is 1,200 hours. How do I know? Because here, job number 2, 1,200 so I'm going to charge $2,400 more to job number 2. Job number 3, 1,500 hours times $2, so 3,000 more add to this job. Job number 4, 1,300 hours times $2, so I'm going to charge $2,600. You add them together is 11,600. So this is called free calculation, because every job you know exactly how many hours. You know each hour short of $2, you add back. Okay, so that's that. All right, so I'm going to do a few questions with you. Okay, so somehow we'll be faster. This question I want to tell you, this one is very, very important. I don't want to be too fast, because lecture 1 was kind of 10 minutes behind you guys. So what I want to show you is another question easier. This one. Jeter Company, this is to look at the relation between direct material, direct labor, and overhead. Okay? So earlier I was telling you this, you have to know it. So Jeter Company use job costing, meaning what? Every single job when they do, they're all different, okay? They allocate based on 120% of direct labor cost. So you charge $1 direct labor, you charge $1.20 overhead. This is what they try to tell you, 1.2%, 1.2 times, or 120%. Last month's transaction in working process account. So we have a beginning, we have direct material, direct labor, overhead, okay? To finished goods, 442,000. This is called cost of goods manufactured. Okay, so only one job, number 850, still in process, not finished. So we have an ending inventory. Okay, so job 850, we charge 9,000 overhead this month. So we have to figure out what's the direct material, direct labor, overhead. Okay, so now let's do it. Working process. Okay, beginning 48,000. Okay, current accounting period. Current direct material 160,000. Direct labor 120,000. And factory overhead 150,000. So for the current accounting cost, manufacturing cost for current period is $430,000. Is that right? So altogether is 48. So 478,000. We move finished product, cost of goods manufactured, to finished goods. We don't know finished goods beginning or ending, we don't know. But 442,000 minus this and this together is 478,000. Alright, 430,000 plus 48, 478. This is called total manufacturing cost to account for. 42000. So you spend this amount of money, but only 442 finished. So the leftover inside here, $36,000. We okay? Ending inventory, not finished. Job 850. But job 850, inside we have direct material, direct labor, overhead. 3 things in there. Okay. So first we already figured out working process ending inventory is this. So direct material, direct labor, overhead. What's the relation? 1.2 add together. Are we okay? You know the relation? Okay. So now I tell you, we charge to this job, direct material, direct labor, overhead, equals $9,000. Okay, if $9,000 is 1.2 times of the labor, will you be able to calculate backwards to figure out the labor cost? Yes or no? Remember we talked about conversion cost, prime cost? Okay, so will I be able to convert back? Yes. So when you convert back, you divide it by 1.2 is 7,500. Okay, so 7,500. Now you know the direct material. You know the direct labor. You know the overhead. Altogether, 36,000. Will you be able to figure out direct material? Yes or no? 19,500. Are we okay with this? Direct material. Okay, another question, very quick. So this is to show you the relation among the three accounts. Another question, because I will ask you this in the midterm exam as well. We have some time. So the very quick and easy question, this job costing, AAA auto shop, okay? Apply overhead on the basis of labor hours, based on labor hours, because it's labor intensive. The current year, they estimate the overhead cost will be $60,000, and the mechanics will work 2,400 hours. So do you know the estimated overhead rate? How much? $25. Are we okay with that? At least you need to know how to calculate this. Okay, you have the estimate total cost, you have estimate labor hours, so this is 40, you said 40, 25? $25. Okay, but the end of the year, they work 59,800 hours, not 60,000 hours. They work less. Okay? No. The dollar amount 59,800, but the labor hours 2350. Okay. So will you be able to figure out the actual overhead rate? Estimated overhead rate is 60,000 divided by 2,400. So you say $25 per hour. But the actual, it will tell you actual overhead rate 59,800, and they only work 2,350. So how much is that? It's 25 point something, right? So just because they work less hour doesn't mean it's less overhead rate. The actual is actually more. 59,800 divided by 2,350 equals 25.45. Okay, so just because the hours work less doesn't mean that the overhead rate is less, because the cost is also less. Okay, so now predetermine, okay, we already done this. Ending balance overhead account, over apply or under apply. Okay, so it got to be under apply, because each hour under applied by 45 cents. If you don't believe me, let's do the calculation. Okay, so $25 work 23.50. So 58,750. Okay, so this is applied minus the actual 58,750 minus 59,800. This is 1050 under applied. $20 under apply. Remember earlier I said 0.45 an hour under apply times 2350, 1050 under apply. Okay, so prepare journal entry to close this. If this is manufacturing business, so what I would do is manufacturing overhead, control 59,800, manufacturing overhead, apply. Of course, this is not manufacturing, but just showing you how we usually do the closing entry. 58,750. Control, yeah. So then 1050. Sorry, apply first. Apply 58. Control. Sorry about this. Apply, because apply always on the credit. You want to close it on the debit side. 58,750. Cost of goods sold 1050. And credit 59,800. Okay, so now a customer come to you, say, I want you to fix my car. She want a quote. Okay, so this is the part I will ask you in the midterm exam, okay? So you estimate the part's going to cost $230. And it's going to take 2.5 hours, okay? $40 for the labor and $25 for the overhead. So we're going to give a quote. Direct material, $230. Direct labor, $40 times 2.5 hours, that's $100. So the overhead, we also charge 2.5 hours. Each hour, $25, so we're going to charge 62.5. This is what we call job costing. Okay? 392.5. Okay. So this is the job cost, but you are not going to just give the quote like this because we under cost already. So usually we are going to add a profit. Okay? Suppose the profit 60%. Add profit 60%. 60% based on cost. This is 235.5, and you're going to give a quote. $630. You're going to give a quote, $630, give or take. So when we undercost the overhead, at least we have profit as a cushion. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you the important part. When we add a profit, this profit is based on the cost. Usually we have profit based on sales. So gross profit is gross margin divided by sales. Net profit margin is net profit divided by sales. Everything divided by sales. But when we say your profit based on cost, have you ever heard of this term called markup? Markup percentage, 60%. So if you're a retailer, usually retailers do it this way, okay? You buy a t-shirt, $5. They mark it up 4 times. So every time when you go to a store, you look at the t-shirt, $19.99. Why? They just mark it up. They need to pay all the expenses and everything else. Okay, so they mark it up based on the cost. $5, 4 times. Of course, not everybody buy it full price. They wait till 70% off. 70% off, even 30% left over. 30% times the $20, just $6. You can cover your material cost, your t-shirt cost. So remember this, I will ask you this. If the company wants to mark up 60% or 100%, mark up based on cost. Profit margin is based on sales. They are the difference. Are you okay with that? So So in the exam, I said the company $400, markup 100%. Markup 100%, you're going to add $400 as a profit. So the end sales price would be $800. Are we okay with this? Okay, everybody sign the attendance sheet. Yes? No? Okay, it's here. So I will see you on Thursday. Okay, so have a good day. Here, here.